You may now begin your presentation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason from Blue Lion Labs, and I want to ask you a question. What was the first thing you did after you woke up this morning? Well, maybe you had a cup of coffee, you probably brushed your teeth, you likely took a shower. Well, I bet that within the first half hour of your day, you used water. But now, I want you to imagine that the water you get from your tap is not clean or safe, but that it has invisible toxins. This is what happened during the 2014 Toledo water crisis due to a harmful algae bloom. Nearly 500,000 people didn't have access to clean drinking water. Harmful algae blooms are when species of cyanobacteria and algae grow out of control in our water. And these species can produce lethal toxins, which can cause damage to our liver and nervous system, and they can even be fatal in large doses. And algae blooms are happening all around the world with severe economic and social impact. They're affecting our drinking water, our recreational use of water, and the fishing industry. It's estimated that the US spends around $4.6 billion a year dealing with blooms, and China spends around $6.5 billion a year. And with climate change, these blooms are only expected to get worse. Now, I believe that everyone deserves to know if their water is safe and clean. And when I learned about how much devastation these blooms were causing, I felt called to dedicate all my time to work on this problem. However, this posed some serious risks around exploring new technologies and starting a business. So to mitigate these risks, I decided to dedicate my entire PhD to exploring new technologies to deal with these algae blooms. I want to help people around the world who are suffering due to these blooms. And doing a PhD and starting a business is the path to accomplish that goal. When I started my PhD, I learned that water treatment plants need to know exactly what types of algae are in their water. Some algae are toxic, some algae are not. However, this is a very long and tedious process. A water treatment plant has to take a water sample, ship it to a certified lab, and then a highly trained professional, a human taxonomist, has to sit behind a microscope and by eye, look through that microscope and identify and count all these different organisms. I talked to 3 different water treatment plants in Ontario, and they said on average they pay $30,000 a year for the service. And they have to wait 3 to 7 days to get these results back. And this is way too long. Water treatment plants are constantly adjusting their treatment process based on the state of their water. So manual identification is the industry standard, and it has high resolution. That is, it's able to identify exactly what types of algae are in the water, but it's slow. There's 2 main alternatives. The first one is fluorescent probes, which is fast, but it has low resolution. The third alternative is imaging flow cytometry, which is also fast, but quite expensive and requires a significant amount of training to use. So I saw a gap in the market here, and I wanted to build something that was both fast and had high resolution for water treatment plants. So given my background in cameras, electrical engineering, and computer vision, I set out to build a system that could automatically identify algae in water. My solution works by combining 2 key elements, a hardware front end, you can see on stage here, and an AI-driven back end. First, the hardware front end is a camera with electronics and optics and is housed in a 3D printed structure. And this prototype here cost me around $5,000 to build. This generates a large amount of data, which is fed into the AI. And that's an artificial neural network that's trained based off of these images that can automatically identify and count these organisms. Using this 2-part solution, a water treatment plant can now identify what types of algae are in their water sample on site. So compared to the manual identification, we can process our data in a matter of minutes opposed to the normal wait time of days. And this allows us to build up a database of algae activity over time, which opens the door to building predictive models. This allows water treatment plants to be proactive opposed to reactive when it comes to blooms. Just imagine being a water treatment plant operator and knowing days in advance that a bloom might show up. Into 1 year of my PhD, I proposed this solution at the aqua hacking competition, where we competed against 33 teams, and we ended up winning first place. Since then, we've done tests in the lab where we compared 6 common types of algae And we're able to get 96% accuracy when comparing these organisms. And we publish these results in the IEEE Access Journal. And we're currently comparing 15 types of algae, and the results look very encouraging. Last year, I went to an international water competition in China where we placed second. And this year, we're partaking in the Erie Hack competition, and just last month, we moved on to the semifinals. The team is myself and my 2 supervisors. Chao is a leader in water treatment plant technology, and Alex is an expert in artificial intelligence. Along the way, I surrounded myself with mentors and advisors who believe in this solution, experts in algae analysis, ecology, and toxins, as well as business and entrepreneurship. We also joined a local startup incubator that provides additional coaching and free workspace. So the 3 treatment plants that I talked to said they'd be willing to pay at least what they're paying now, which is $30,000 a year, and they're eager to get immediate results. We also spoke to one Chinese organization, and they said they'd be willing to pay $100,000 for this technology. So moving forward, I'm going to be finishing my PhD this calendar year, and this summer, we're going to be starting paid pilots. One treatment plant in Ontario has already signed up for a paid pilot and will be covering all the hardware costs associated with this. Later this year, we're going to start fundraising so that we can file our IP and also grow the founding team. In 2020, we're going to hire engineers so that we can build our minimal viable product based on the feedback that we're getting from these paid pilots. We're going to be working as closely as possible with these treatment plants to ensure that we're building something that will actually be useful to them. Then in 2021, we're going to manufacture our technology in China and also begin sales in North America and China. Finally, in 2022, we're going to be launching our technology as a hardware as a service, where we provide the hardware, the training, and online analysis to water treatment plants on an annual basis. I'll be working here in Canada and the US, and Chao, my co-founder, who lives in China, will be working full-time there. We need this money to jumpstart our progress so that we can get our prototype into the hands of our early adopters. Algae are taking control of our waters and leaving entire industries paralyzed. By using our technology, water treatment plants can very carefully identify what types of algae in their water, allowing them to customize their treatment, resulting in clean water for us all. Thank you.
We will now begin the question and answer period. Judges, please raise your hand if you have a question, and a microphone will be brought to you.
Yeah, very well. Thank you very much, Jason. Exciting and inspiring. How many water treatment plants are there?
That's a great question. We've done a market analysis, and we've estimated that there's around 1,000 water treatment plants worldwide with severe algae problems. So we expect that we could, in our first year, maybe get 10% of those, first and second year.
And how are you expecting to get those? Do you have a sales team? Are you sales focused?
Right now, we don't have a sales team. Our team is quite small. We're going to be hiring a sales team next year. We're going to be spending time going to conferences, trade shows. Our main first clients are going to be our pilots, and those are also going to be testimonies and turn into referrals. And hopefully, they're going to be our proclaimers of the technology.
Jason, in the one chart, there was a certification process. So it goes from the plant certification and then onto a lab. Do you propose eliminating the certification process, or how do you adopt that into your model?
That's a great question. A certified lab is a wet lab with a trained taxonomist. So they just need the equipment to concentrate the sample, pipette it, place it on the slide, and into the microscope. Some treatment plants even have that equipment on site, but they don't have the knowledge to identify these different organisms. So very, very few treatment plants hire someone to do that, but that's the exception. The number of taxonomists are few and far between. Most of them are near retirement, and there's not too many new people entering the field.
Okay, so it's not a regulatory issue or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
What's regulated by the World Health Organization, Health Canada, and the US EPA is the amount of toxins in the water. And this is the amount of algae present in the water. And algae are producing these toxins. So essentially, this is a proxy measure to determine how likely your water will have toxins or not. And this is something that treatment plants are doing regularly when they have algae.
I'm curious about where the units are produced and some about the manufacturing and operation and cost.
This one I built at the University of Waterloo. This is a prototype, and this is what we've been doing to generate all our results. This is not a market-ready device, and that's why we're working with treatment plants to figure out how we can iterate on the current technology. These pilots are involving our team, two taxonomists, professional taxonomists, and these treatment plants. So with these three groups of people, we're going to be converging on the minimal viable product. Now, exactly how that's going to be manufactured, our plan is to manufacture it in China because my co-founder, Chow, is based out of China and is Chinese. So he has a lot of connections there. Oh.
Hey, Jason, great presentation. I think what you're doing is important. I'm looking at the...
Thanks, sorry.
I'm looking at the viability of the business, and I am concerned that you don't have any forecast for the next 5 years, at least even a preliminary forecast. So when we look at this business model size, if you're saying that your total amount of water treatment facilities is 1,000, and you're capturing 10%, that's 100.
Correct.
And you're charging, let's say, a medium of 50,000, then you're netting $5 million a year. I'm wondering how big the market opportunity is.
Yeah, so we estimated 1,000 treatment plants with severe algae problems. So if we, with the 500,000 assumption, that's 5 million in revenue in our first year or two, and that's recurring revenue. The 1,000 is not the total number, but the immediate addressable market. So I don't know the upper limit right now on exactly how many treatment plants, but I'm confident to say that there's 1,000 worldwide with severe algae problems.
And sorry, just a quick follow-up. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just wondering, why would you continue with your PhD if you have, a viable product here? It sounds like the opportunity is big. Why wouldn't you just drop your PhD, focus on the sales, and expand the business?
Yeah, that's a great question. This was a decision I made early on, and for me, getting a PhD was important in order to build a technology that could be trusted. And doing a PhD allows me free access to a lot of university resources that if I was to just start immediately, I would probably need to fundraise $4 to $5 million. But now I have all these university resources, and that also adds credibility as me as an engineer and as a professional, as an academic. So for me, it's a priority, and that's why I've dedicated the time to do that. Thank you.
So to further up on the gentleman's conversation around the regulatory body, what and how will you be ensuring that the results are accurate if it's not the certified lab that has potential agencies or other technologies that are similar, because this is new?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the beginning, we're definitely going to be need to working with the regulatory bodies in order to fully validate the technology. The reality of taxonomy and these human experts is that how accurate it is dependent on their amount of expertise. And that is an unfortunate reality, is that different experts have different amount of expertise. So if one treatment plant was to send their water sample to one expert and then a different expert, there's going to be even variability there. So that's why we're working with two taxonomists, so we have at least that sample size there. And then there's also techniques that we're doing where we build up a database of pure algae. So we know algae can be cultured to only have one type of organism in that water sample, and we can build up a database of what those algae look like. And that's what the tests that we've done so far. So.
Just to go on looking at the profitability of the company, you said, as an example, $30,000 a year water treatment plant in Canada would pay. What would be your ongoing costs outside of the hardware costs year by year?
Yeah, the ongoing costs would be to pay salaries, to pay rent, all those kind of like...
What's the dollar amounts?
The dollar amount?
By unit.
I haven't done an exact number, so I can't give you a precise. I've estimated that when we fundraise later this year, we're probably going to need to raise 3 to 4 million as a runway over the next 2.5 years to pay salaries. I come from an engineering background, and I acknowledge that business is more of my weakness, and that's also why I've been making it a priority to surround myself with entrepreneurs and business advisors who have gone this way and walked this path before, and they can guide me along. So we will be figuring out exactly how much, and I'm confident that we will raise the adequate amount.
Jason, thank you. Just a few concerns around the scalability of the plan. Does the technology allow you to look at other toxins, or is it limited strictly to what comes from an algae bloom?
The current technology and the focus of my PhD is specifically algae, and we're measuring the algae organisms. We're not actually measuring the toxins themselves. That's a chemical-based test. So this technology can be used for algae and down the line other waterborne pathogenic organisms, so like Giardia, Cryptosporidium, E. coli, anything that can be resolved optically through a microscope.
Talk a bit about the AI, if you could. Is that a service? Is it something that's proprietary?
Yeah,
Talk about that.
AI is relatively new technology, but it's quite established. The way we're doing it is with deep artificial neural networks. And right now, the way it's been run is locally on a desktop or laptop, but in the future, we plan to have a cloud infrastructure. So any kind of AI, any updates to the model would be completely seamless to the water treatment plant. And the beautiful thing about AI is it improves as you get more and more data. It's like a snowball effect. So in the beginning, you need to have, that's the challenge with AI. You need to get a database and a data set. And that's what I've been focusing on in my PhD. And that's what we're going to be building as we start our pilots. And that's the barrier to entry. But that's also the unique value, how we are separated from our competitors. Because we keep that data, and we leverage that data to improve the models to accurately say what algae are in their water.
Oh, did you patent the model?
It's not currently patented. We're going to be filing a patent later this year. I'm going to be defending my thesis this fall. And then the plan is once I defend, we're not going to release my thesis publicly, but we're going to be filing that patent and then later on releasing the thesis. Yeah.
Thanks.
Jason, good pitch. Just a quick question. Have you thought of the consumer market? And maybe you can help me understand. Could this be integrated into smart appliances, for example, smart fridge, in that model? Is that something you've thought of?
With regards to the consumer market, we have given it some thought, not so much with the smart appliances, but more with cottaging industry. In Ontario, there's a huge cottage market. And I've spoken to a number of cottage associations, but the reality is their budgets are so small. They have an annual budget of maybe if they're lucky, $10,000, because all the members are paying their dues. So the technology as it stands, I couldn't find a profitable business model to serve that market. Down the line, once we've hit all the water treatment plants, there is a possibility of us developing a cheaper type of technology that could be used by the consumer, such as people who are going to the beach or people who own cottages.
Yeah, and I was referring more to a JV with a big brand. So that gives you your distribution and your channel partnership. That's kind of what I was thinking. Has any thought been around that?
Sorry, can you, I don't fully understand. Can you clarify?
No worries, no worries. I think I got my answer. Thank you.
Okay, sorry that I
No, you
can't
did a good
follow
job.
up.
Thank you.
Jason, what's your why? Why are you doing this outside of testing for algae?
That's a great question, and I have thought about it a lot. I was born and raised in Canada, and I always took water for granted. I never gave it a second thought. And when I started traveling more in my early 20s, I realized how fortunate I was, not only with respect to water, but just how amazing our country is. It sounds very patriotic, but like, And I felt very blessed and fortunate to be in North America.
Your time has expired. Judges and guests, please help me in thanking Jason Deglint.